In this video, we're going to walk you through the check-in process for Disney Cruise Line.
So we are setting sail very soon on our second cruise. It's going to be on the Disney Wish, and there's a few things different about this cruise.
Because Milo, our middle nephew, is staying in our room with us. So instead of just checking in two adults, which turns out is a lot easier, we also had to check in a child as well.
All right, so before we dive into the screen share, we're going to talk about what kind of the check-in process is like. Depending upon your Castaway Club level status, depends on how far away from the cruise date that you can check in. First-time cruisers are 30 days, and then, every level above that is earlier and earlier.
Yeah, and I think it depends even a little bit on the length of the cruise as well. So it's not always consistent, I don't think. But definitely work with your travel agent to figure out when your check-in day is.
And also, too, that does happen at midnight Eastern Standard Time of that mark of the start of the time.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit at the end of the video about whether or not you should set an alarm and get up at midnight to check in or wait until the morning of, because you basically have from midnight, midnight Eastern Time, the morning of your eligibility, all the way until one day before you set sail to check in. It's obviously recommended to do it the earlier the better, and again, we'll talk a little bit at the end of the video about why.
The check-in process is an opportunity for you to provide your citizenship documents, your passports, photos, payment information, all of that documents that you will need.
So what you will need before you check in is those citizenship documents. We use passports. I think you can use birth certificates. I assume there are other documentation that you can use besides passports. Be sure to check Disney Cruise Line's page about what that documentation should be. You'll need basically photocopies of those, essentially. When you take a picture with your phone and save that as a JPEG. That's how you'll upload it. And then you'll also need photos of you and every person in your stateroom. And these photos need to be, head on, kind of like shoulders, head on a plain background. You potentially could use a photo that you already have and sort of crop it down, but I'd recommend just standing against a blank wall and taking those photos. So I also would recommend taking a few of them.
Yeah. During your process, in the check-in process, it may give you a fault or whatever. Maybe the fit photo does not meet the requirements, so you may have to have a different photo to submit. Yes. Also with the passports as well, they're pretty shiny. Some of them are a little glare.
Take a few photos. Yeah.
So a couple photos of those as well in case something is illegible due to the glare or just the nature of the photo. Yeah,
that way if you have an issue with an upload, you can just try the next document you have and you're not trying to fumble through taking photos last minute. Also have your credit card information ready because you will need to put a credit card on file. This is the one that will be linked to your onboard account and you'll be charged at the end of the cruise. So important to have that ready because you will have to submit that during this process. And then lastly, emergency contact information. And this is a person who is not on the ship with you. So now we're gonna walk through the check-in process. First, click on the already booked section and you can just click already booked and it will take you into the next screen. You should land on a screen that shows you your cruise with your reservation number, stateroom, all of your information. I've obviously blocked it out for the video. You're gonna scroll down on this screen and you can see there the online check-in process. So you're going to click where it says check-in. Yeah, so you should be taken then to another screen that kind of looks like this. Again, you'll see your cruise that you are about to go on, the people who are in your cruise, your reservation number, all of that important information. And you're going to begin the check-in process by clicking the button that says begin check-in. And then you should get to a guest information page and you can see on the left-hand navigation side that you're going to be going through guest information, your onboard account, traveling with children, travel plans, and then you'll see down at the bottom the port arrival time and of course the cruise contract. You'll need to go through this with each person, but you just start with the first one and it will kind of naturally take you in guest by guest. So start by clicking on the first person and this is where you're going to fill out personal information for that person. Some things may be already populated if you have already filled out that information, maybe if you've traveled before or if it's part of kind of linked to your Disney account, your information is probably going to auto-populate. I know ours did. Obviously blocked it out here for this video, but if it didn't already auto-populate, you can fill out all of the information in the fields on this screen. And then as you scroll down, you'll see that you'll select your preferred language. And also this is where you will enter your emergency contact information. So you do only just need a name, a phone number, and then of course how they're related to you. And just below that, you'll be able to select everyone in your stateroom who shares this information. That way it will auto-populate on their screens as well. So in our case, obviously Chris and I share the same personal information, but Milo has different information, so I just clicked the box for Chris. As you continue to scroll down the page, this is where you will upload your documents. And you can choose your identification type. For us, we use passports. And then you upload the photo of the document right there where it says upload photo. And once that uploads, it should input your information. It usually will pull that in from the upload. But if it doesn't, you might need to fill out information from that document, such as the passport number and like name, first and last name, and that kind of information just below where you upload the passport. It may pull in. I know for my passport, it pulled in that information, but for Chris, it didn't pull in yours. So we had to type in yours. So then when you scroll down, you'll get to the security photo. And this is that kind of photo of the shoulders and the head with a plain background. It's going to give you a list of do's and don'ts. So just you can read through those quickly, make sure that your photo meets the requirements, and then upload it here. And you should see a thumbnail of that photo once you upload it. Then as you scroll down the page, you're going to get into, for female cruisers, you'll have to answer the question on whether or not you are going to be more than 24 weeks pregnant during sailing. If that is a yes, that is a problem. So you're not supposed to sail after that point. So just make sure that, if you are pregnant, you are not too far along when you're going on your cruise. So your next guest will come up. Again, because I clicked the same information, the address is actually already filled out, but if it is not, you can fill it out here as too. And actually this process for the second guest looks exactly like it does for the first. You're gonna go through, upload the passport after you've put in the information, you put in the same emergency contact information as well, upload the photo, same rules apply. And you'll do the same for the next guest. So in our case, because we actually already had Milo's information in his Disney account, it pulled in automatically, but you can add it there as well. And you're going to go through the same exact thing. Preferred language, choose the emergency contact, upload the passport, upload the photo. And then in the case of Milo, we did have to indicate whether or not their parent or legal guardian was sailing on the cruise, because he's not our child, but he's just staying in our stateroom. So we did want to indicate that yes, his parents are coming on the cruise. They're just going to be in a different stateroom. And this is where I made a small mistake and accidentally hit continue and skipped over the onboard account. So I ended up having to go back and do this afterwards. But we went straight into the traveling with children. And this was the part that was completely new for us because we had not done it previously. So this was an important part and a kind of an interesting one to me, because even though Milo is obviously not our child, because he was staying in our stateroom, we had to give authorization actually for his parents to be able to take him off the ship, which seems so funny to me. But that's what you're clicking here. So you're basically kind of saying they can only debark the ship with the person, whose stateroom they're in, or they're able to go with other staterooms. So if you are traveling with multiple family members across a few different staterooms, this is an important one to note. If you want to be able to allow any and all adults, maybe it's grandparents, aunts, uncles, etc., to be able to take the child off of the ship at ports, you need to make sure that you're selecting this during the check-in process. Or if you want to make sure they only leave with the person whose stateroom they're in, then obviously indicate that here as well. So that is what this section is about. So we indicated obviously that he can get off the ship, with other people besides us. So it's going to ask you, do you allow the child to debark alone? Are they allowed to debark with other authorized guests, which is what we chose. And this is where we were able to select his parents so that he could get on and off the ship with them as well. And then the next step was the youth club activities registration. And this was around the check-in privileges. You can, I think children over a certain age, they are allowed to check themselves in and out. So you can indicate here whether or not they are allowed to check themselves in and out. Milo falls just in the range where he's allowed to if we were to indicate that he's allowed to, but he's not quite old enough that it's a given that he can check himself in and out. Because I think with Corey, he's old enough that they didn't have to answer this question for him.
Also of note here, do keep in mind that if in the event of a ship-wide emergency, all children, whether or not they are authorized to check out themselves, must be picked up from the youth clubs by an authorized member of the party.
And this is an area where you can list any kind of special accommodations. Notes here, even though there's not food in the kids club, we went ahead and noted allergies, just because we thought that might be the appropriate place to do that. And then you can scroll through. They've got all the youth activity policies. It was just important to read through this information so you understand what is their policy around behavior, for instance. What's their policy around taking photos, that type of thing. How do the Oceaneer bands work? So I would recommend reading through this. And then once you've read through all of the policies, of course, you'll go in and authorize that you understand them, and you as the responsible adult are going to uphold them and ensure that the children understand them too. This was another area where the only option was for myself or Chris to authorize this instead of a parent. So the next thing you'll be able to select is about dropping off and picking up from kids clubs. We did want to obviously go ahead and give Tracy and Kai rights to drop off and pick up their kids from kids club without us having to be there. So we selected Kai and Tracy here. I thought it was interesting that Corey was old enough that he was on the list.
Yeah. So any child that is 13 years of age or older are authorized to drop off and pick up other children from youth clubs. So if an older sibling can pick up their younger siblings easily and let the parents enjoy the time.
Right. Parents can go to the adult-only areas and the kids can check themselves in and out of kids club. We did not do that in this case. So we have Milo being checked in or picked up by one of us. I did think this was really cool, though. You have the ability to select like a secret word, like a code word sort of. So we thought that was fun. So we put one in there for Milo. So then we went back to the payment information, which I had initially skipped, but you can do some of the earlier stuff out of order, so it wasn't a big deal. I went in and added the payment information. This is where you're just basically going to be listing that you're gonna have a cash or a credit card tied to your stateroom account, or the charges are going to be paid by another guest. Again, if you're traveling with a larger family and maybe one family member is paying for the trip, you can set it up that way too. And then right after you do that, you'll be able to select basically who is covered for, who you're paying for. You can see because we have my sister's stateroom linked to our account, it gave me the option to pay for them as well. And then you can also give charging privileges to anyone. So one is, hey, I as a responsible adult, I'm going to cover all of the room charges. And the other one is this person can go and spend money on this account in the souvenir shops, at the lounges, etc. All right, so once you've done the first sections, the last part before you get to your port arrival time is your travel plans. And this is where you're going to basically be putting in your travel plans of how you're getting to the port and how you'll leave the port. You can indicate here your flight information. I answer, are you flying in for your cruise? No, because we're technically coming from a hotel because we'll be there for a couple of days before the cruise sets sail. And then you'll indicate where you're going after your cruise. In our case, for this cruise, we're actually going to Disney World. So I indicated that that's what we were doing and that we would be going to, and it has you to select the resort to which you'll be going. And then the nice thing here is that you can go ahead and indicate everyone in your stateroom who's sharing your plans. In our case, we're obviously sharing plans with Milo because he is getting to the cruise port with us and he's leaving the cruise port with us as well. So I was able to just select that and it automatically filled out for them, which was great. Didn't have to fill it out for all of us. All right, and that will take you automatically then into the port arrival time screen where you can select your port arrival time. For us, we did not really care about our port arrival time because we are sailing with Tracy and her family. They are first-time cruisers, so they weren't able to check in as early as us. So we just knew we would go with whatever port arrival time they received, and we would go with whoever's boarding group was the latest because we want to obviously board the ship at the same time. So I just went ahead and checked the earliest one that we could. Incidentally, we were only off by 15 minutes from Tracy when she was able to check in. I think we selected the noon to 12:15. She got the 12:15 to 12:30. And the last part here, I've sped this up, but feel free to pause your screen. There's a lot to read here. I do recommend going through it and giving it a good glance, just to make sure that you do understand the agreement that you're making when you sign a contract to go on a cruise. So then once you have done that, you can check that you have agreed and complete the check-in process. And this will take you to your port arrival form. This form, you do not have to print this out and have a paper copy if you don't want it. You can save it to your Apple Wallet. I'll actually show that, I think, on the next screen. You'll see there's an option to save it to your Apple Wallet. I probably will also still print it out and have a paper copy just in case because I get nervous about that. You will need this to board the cruise. This is a very important document. You have the option to send it via email to someone else. I did go ahead and email it to Tracy. Obviously saved a copy for myself to print out later when we get closer to our cruise, and we'll add it to our Apple Wallets as well. And on this document, you're going to see obviously your information about your cruise. It gives your muster station, and then you have the individual kind of check-ins for all your sailing parties. You can see it gives the option for each of us to add those to our Apple Wallets, so they're right there with us for easy check-on for embarkation day. And then even as you scroll down, you have another option to print the form and send it via email. And as I mentioned, I sent it via email to my sister, and I did that right here and just hit send.
Okay, so that was the check-in process. It was a little more involved than just our first cruise because it was just the two of us.
Yeah.
Having a child obviously makes things a little bit more I wouldn't say difficult, but just more involved.
Just more information to fill
It's
out.
definitely interesting considering we don't have our own children. There's a
Things I wouldn't have considered. Yeah, for sure. So that was interesting. As we mentioned during the screen share, we did not care about our port arrival time because we're sailing with first-time cruisers and they're going to have a little bit later port arrival time than we are. Incidentally, the first time we cruised, we also didn't care about our port arrival time because we were staying at a Disney resort and using Disney transportation, and they just kind of get you there when they get you there. So a reason that you might care about an earlier port arrival time is that if you miss out on kind of being able to book ahead of time the adult-only dining experiences or something like the Royal Gathering, for instance, you would have the opportunity to go to guest services, and the earlier on the ship that you are, the better chances you'd have of securing a reservation to one of those things if you missed out initially, because they usually reserve and hold a few back for embarkation day. So that might be a reason that you care about an early port arrival time. Some people do, some people don't. It hasn't been a big deal to us. We have yet to try out one of the adult dining experiences and still won't on this cruise because it's a short one for us. What we may on our Magic cruise, so we might care about it a little bit more then. But that is just to kind of give a high level review of why you may or may not care about an early port arrival time. Obviously, the earlier you check in, the better your chances are of getting an earlier port arrival time. So if it matters to you, you may want to wake up at midnight on the day of your check-in and check in. We have not done that.
Yeah.
We've just waited until the morning of, and honestly, it wasn't so bad. I mean, even Tracy, as a first-time cruiser, got, the 12:15, 12:30 slot, so it's not too bad. I hope this video was helpful for any of you who have an upcoming Disney trip on the horizon. I know we cannot wait to be back on board the ship.
We will be vlogging our trip, so make sure to subscribe and follow along if you haven't already, and we'll see you next time.